Hi, this is Mark Brown, your local mortgage expert. I'm here with Ephraim Charlebois from OC Design Group. And today we're going to be talking about 203K loans and how you can work with a contractor to get the home of your dreams. So I often have people that come to me and say, hey Mark, I want to get a loan to buy a house, but I want to be able to customize it myself. I want to get a 203K loan or a renovation loan. What does that look like? And so I brought in an expert, someone who actually does that work for a living, to talk about what it looks like from the contractor side, which you should prepare for as a buyer or even as a real estate agent if you're working with a buyer who wants to get a 203K or a renovation loan, because it's a little bit different process than just qualifying for the loan, doing the 4 C's, and then making it to the closing table. So I brought Ephraim in. Ephraim's going to talk about a little bit of what he sees from a contractor's perspective when he's working with those clients that are borrowing money, not just to make the purchase of their house, but also to make improvements to the property.
How's it going? So a lot of what we're seeing right now is when people try to use the 203K loans is they will find a house and say, oh, this is great, but we want to make updates and we don't have the capital or the money to shell out cash to do so. These 203K loans allow you to bundle the house and the renovations together as long as the as completed value appraises for what you're putting into it. So what we like to do is work from the client right from the get-go and not have the client find the house and then bring us in, because that takes time and you can lose the house between when you like it and when we are able to come create the design and the budget for it.
So you mentioned something that's really, really key right there. You have to have your contractor on board, ideally before you find your house. This is why. If you find a house in a hot market and you're going up against other buyers, even if it's a property that needs improvements, chances are you're not the only person that's got an eye on that property. So if you say, hey, I want to put in an offer, then I'm going to figure out what the cost of the renovations are going to be so I can get approved for the loan. In that time period, another buyer may come along with a stronger offer and say, hey, I'm willing to move a little bit faster and I'm going to buy the house as is. Right now, what we're seeing, because property values are increasing everywhere, is that some people are cashing out, right? They've had houses that they've been sitting on for 20 years, 30 years, and they want to sell it and move up, or they just want to move to a different area. So if the house that you like is in that different area, and that person just sold their house and got a big check because they had a ton of equity in the property, they may be coming in with a cash offer or need very little financing, and they're willing to waive some of those contingencies that you maybe need. So having someone like Ephraim involved early on means that when you're walking through the property, you can have a contractor's eyes on it ASAP so that they can give you an idea of what the cost of the repairs are going to be. And you know, hey, is this even feasible for me? If it is, then I want to move forward and put together getting the loan. And I don't think enough people have those conversations up front with themselves or with their loan professional or their real estate professional. And that will cost them. I've had plenty of clients who have come to me and said, hey, I want to get a renovation loan. And then I ask them, hey, do you have a contractor lined up? Do you know what your max budget is as far as what you're willing to spend on the property? And they don't have any of that stuff together. And the reality is they might have been a perfect property for them, but they lost out on it just because they weren't ready to go. So what are the things that you look for when you're walking through a property and you're saying, hey, you know what? We may need to put this house back together or completely rearrange the layout because it's set up for maybe an older style layout, right? Now, the thing that's popular, I think, for a lot of new construction is these open concepts,
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So what are you looking for as far as like, what are the major expenses that a homeowner or potential homeowner's got a budget for when they're doing a renovation?
It really depends on what the buyer is looking for. As I told you earlier, I'm on the real estate websites every day, just looking at houses that nobody's buying. And so I have a good idea of when I'm looking through the market, I'm looking at what can be done to a house. So when I sit down with a client, I know which houses may fit the criteria that they're looking to do that we can renovate to fit their wants and needs.
Interesting. So you're that way. They're not even getting a feeling for
so
it.
they don't even have to go search if they don't want. They may have already found one that nobody wants and they want us to come look. But for the most part, we would love for their realtor to get us involved early, so that we can kind of guide them to houses that we can renovate, that we know we can renovate to fit their wants and needs.
Interesting. Okay. And so that's super key. Getting the contractor again involved as early as possible in the process so that we don't have any surprises, so that you're not wasting time looking at properties that frankly you shouldn't be looking at because maybe they need too much work or it's not going to allow the level of customization that you're looking for. That's really the key to being able to utilize someone like Ephraim, and frankly, to be able to really leverage the 203K loan is what it's designed to do. One of the things that I see as well is sometimes, not saying that your company does this, but some contractors will come in with a really low quote so they can win the job, and then they start doing the work, and then surprise, cost went up, right?
See, we know the ins and outs of these loans. I've done extensive research on to make sure that I'm not going to lead anybody down a road that ends up leading to a dead end or leads to what I'm trying to avoid buyers and having to do is close that gap with cash. We know the limits of the loan amounts for these renovations, so we know what houses not to look at that will need more money than we're allowed to use for these loans. We want to avoid that. I mean, the whole reason I started this was because I had a nightmare buying my first house. It was a fixer-upper, and I wish somebody had come along and told me about these. So this business stems from that experience. So I want to avoid and help buyers avoid the heartache and the headache of buying fixer-uppers.
I love it. I love it. And so what Ephraim's talking about, making sure that coming in, you're working with competent professionals. They're not just telling you what you want to hear, they're telling you what you need to hear. Obviously, we both know this. What's cheap isn't always what's best, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Somebody can always do it cheaper, but it ain't gonna be good.
Exactly. And when you skimp on maybe paying what the cost of something should be, so that you can maybe save a couple dollars here and there, you're not going to be 100% happy. And I read a quote last week. I loved it. It says you always pay twice for cheap, right?
Yep.
Because you usually have to pay upfront for the cheap,
wants to fix it,
and wants to fix it, right? And so when you're starting the process, if you are interested in looking for a 203K loan, again, when you're starting the process, if you are looking for doing a 203K loan or even a home style renovation, there is a conventional loan equivalent of a 203K loan. 203K is actually an FHA product, so there are some limitations on what you can do. You can't put luxury finishes necessarily in a property if you're getting a 203K loan because it's a federally insured loan. They don't want you to have the hot tub installed maybe, but you can bring the property up to livable condition for sure. You can have, reasonable finishes, but if you're trying to go over the top luxury, then maybe that's when someone would get a home style renovation loan involved. And the thing that I love about it, it's the same process. The advantage of using a 203K loan is that you can actually borrow up to 110% of what the property appraises for after improvements. So that gives people some flexibility because again, right now the market's hot. You have people that are overpaying for retail properties, retail ready properties that are move-in ready. And so you may even have to overpay for a property that needs improvements, but you're allowed to borrow up to 110% of what the property appraises for after repairs. And so what they're going to do is take your scope of work, right? Depending on the cost of the repairs, the appraiser is also going to need to see written scope of work from a HUD consultant, right? And then they're going to compare those numbers and they're going to say, hey, does Ephraim's budget match with the HUD consultant's budget? If they're both in agreement and you're comfortable with it as the borrower, then now we're rocking and rolling. And then as a mortgage company or a mortgage bank, when we're making that lending decision, we can look at all the information and say, hey, what's the property going to be worth after improvements? What is the cost of the repairs going to be? Is this something that a HUD consultant signed off on? If it's over $35,000 for a 203K loan and then over $50,000 for a home style renovation loan, right?
Yeah, so I believe there's the Streamline, I believe it's called Streamline for the 203K, which is anything under, I believe it's 30,000. And then again, 110% of what the appraised value is for basically anything. I believe the limit is $548,000
Absolutely.
total loan.
Yep.
But you can always put more money down to bring that down.
Exactly. So you have people that are coming in and they're able to leverage a 203K loan to get a property that's in a perfect neighborhood for them, but they've been maybe missing out on properties because someone else is a little bit stronger on paper. Maybe they're putting in a conventional loan pre-approval, and this person has to get an FHA loan because of their credit, or they're trying to get a multi-unit property. There's a number of reasons why somebody would get an FHA loan instead of a conventional loan, but in a competitive market, they may not be able to go to head with other buyers. And so now they're able to say, hey, we're going to leverage that FHA loan, still be able to qualify for the loan that we need, but we can go after a property that maybe nobody else wants to take on because it's a little bit of heavy lifting, right? And that sweat equity, fortunately, is coming from your company. Yep. I'm not going to have to come in and sand walls exactly. or hang cabinets as the homeowner, right?
We do everything from start to finish, and something else we do that allows the homeowners to see, or the buyers, I should say, to see exactly what they're going to get. We do 3D renderings of all our renovations, especially the interior things, which is going to be the majority of the renovations that are completed. But I mean, you can do anything from adding out, adding up. I mean, we can add second stories, and we'll do renderings of all that, so you'll be able to see exactly what you're getting.
So you can seize it before you seize it, if you hear what I'm saying, right? So it's super important that you're working with competent professionals at every step of the process. When you're getting a 203K loan or a home style renovation loan, these are much more involved processes because in addition to you having to satisfy the 4 C's, you have to show that you have the credit, the cash. Obviously, we're looking at the collateral and your capacity to repay the loan, right? We also have to get the 5th C involved. We got to get your contractor, right? So you got to get a contractor involved that is competent. They're going to be able to put together a budget that's comprehensive, that's going to go and cover everything that needs to be done to the property to either A, get it in livable condition if it's a 203K loan, or B, if you're doing a home style renovation loan, make sure that it has all the finishes that you're looking for in the house, because you don't want to get midway through the process and decide, hey, you know what? We wanted to do some other stuff, but it's not in the budget. Now we've got to come out of pocket with that, the money for that, to make those repairs or those improvements. So you have competent professionals involved, and they're able to help guide you through that process, and it helps it move as smoothly as possible. This is still a very complicated process. It's a huge purchase for most people, right? And there's a lot of moving parts, but we want to control the controllables as much as possible. So if you want to get a hold of someone who's doing work in the area, obviously you can reach out to Ephraim. Ephraim, what's the best way for someone to contact your company?
Either by phone or by email, even social media on our Instagram page at OC Design Group LLC. But you can find our contact information, email, and phone number on that page.
Awesome. So you have it here from the words from the mouth of a professional. Ephraim and his company are always doing these types of jobs. You want to make sure that you get a quote, ideally from 2 or 3 contractors before you start the home style renovation process. Ideally, you want to be already decided on a person that you want to work with and a company that you want to work with. Verify that they're licensed and insured up front so you don't have any surprises. That way you can focus on finding a house that makes the most sense for you, getting approved for the loan, and closing on your new home. And I'm glad to help out, answer any questions that you guys may have about the actual loan process, because as I said, it is a little bit more involved than when you're buying a house that's move-in ready. But this is a great tool on how you can go after inventory. That what we call in the mortgage industry, it's like shadow inventory, right? Not every buyer is looking for a house that they have to come in and do a project, because you essentially turn into a project manager overnight. So you lean on professionals, and then you're able to leverage their expertise so that you can get the house of your dreams.